I'm Mike Johnson with the download edition of World Business News from the BBC. In this edition, how the collapse in the housing market in the United States is still hurting the world's biggest economy. We'll hear fears that more and more Americans will walk away from their housing debts. Why Wall Street investors refuse to be cheered by positive news on jobs. And how electricity could soon be Ethiopia's biggest export.
It's a business venture which they are very keen about. Kenya being their closest neighbour, they think this is a ready market.
All the details coming up. Housing lay at the heart of America's and then the world's financial crisis. As the US house price bubble burst, banks suffered as investments based on home loans went sour. That process began more than 3 years ago. But even now, as the US struggles to establish a sustainable recovery, the housing market hasn't lost its ability to damage the American economy. There are real fears that with prices still falling in many areas, and as more people discover their homes are worth less than their loans, they'll choose to simply walk away from those loans, which in some states they are legally entitled to do, even if they can keep up the repayments. That's a sobering prospect for the US government, which now backs the vast majority of all American home loans. In Arizona, house prices have fallen by as much as 60% over the past 5 years, and they're still dropping. Brett Barry is a broker for the HomeSmart real estate agency in Phoenix.
As long as people continue to walk away from their homes in greater and greater numbers, which they are, it creates that vicious cycle, and it is a cycle where as people walk away, we now have another foreclosure. The foreclosure goes on the market and pushes prices down. As prices go down more, it creates more walkaways, hence more foreclosures. The Treasury Department, they know that the issue is huge. They know people are walking away in greater and greater numbers, and there's really not much being done about it.
A lot of people will be thinking, well, hang on a minute, interest rates are at record lows in America as they are in other countries. How is it that people are in trouble? And I suppose the answer to that is there's an issue of when people come to the end of their short-term loan period, they then have to refinance, don't they? And they're finding that they just don't have enough value, enough equity in the home.
That's a very good point. Sometime around May or June of this year, they say trillions and trillions of dollars worth of adjustable rate loans are about to come due. That will probably be another leg down in this market, because if they owe, let's say, 100 or 200,000 more than the home is worth, they will not be able to refinance, at least based on the way things work right now.
Now, many people are handing back their keys because they have to, because they've lost their job and they literally can't afford the repayments, or they're having trouble refinancing their loan. But other people, I understand, are handing in their keys simply because they can't bear the thought that their loan might be greater than their house is worth. I'm wondering whether it's time the Americans really change their psychology about housing and think of it less as an investment, something to make money from, and more as, well, just a place to live in.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've been telling my clients for at least the last 3 or 4 years that if you're purchasing now in this market here in Phoenix, which is still going down, you need to expect to be in the home for 15 or 20 years. In the United States, that concept is literally unheard of, or has been unheard of. But I remind people that if you can remember back to your mom and dad or your grandparents, when they purchased a home, they never thought when they bought it they were going to sell the home in 2 or 3 years and try and do a quick flip or make a quick buck.
Exactly. It may not be good for your commissions, but it could be exactly what the American economy needs at the moment.
Right, but here's the thing. We still, I think, in America have a crisis of will. I mean, right now, if you were to buy a home with what's called an FHA loan, you could buy it with 3.5% down. And part of the problem with that, and that's a government-backed loan, part of the problem is here in Phoenix, prices are still dropping by about 1 or 2% a month. All right? So anybody buying today, right now, is going to be upside down on that loan within a period of months. I guarantee it, 100%. The government really needs to, I think, take a cold, hard look and say maybe it's better if we say, you know what, people have to put 10% or 20% down, the standards have to be higher, and we also need to advise people that they should stay in the home for 20 years or 15 years. But that's not really happening, They're not being straight with people. They're still trying to juice things up with these 3.5% mortgages. And guess who's backing all those FHA loans? Taxpayers. We're backing all of them. 80 to 90% of all loans in the United States right now, all of them are being backed by the government. The government is holding the entire real estate market in the United States right in the palm of its hand. I think it's a little strange and a little scary.
That was US real estate agent Brett Barry.